So there's been some big news this month from the Project Zomboid devs. We finally have some concrete information about the release of Build 42, and the team have addressed the elephant in the room, that being, when are we going to see the next major update? In this video, I'll go over everything you need to know from the recent Thursdoid development blog post, including a narrowed window for the release of Build 42, a recap of the features the devs intend to include at launch, and some general feedback from testers on all the changes we can expect. Okay, let's not keep you guys waiting too long for the information you're all waiting for. Here's the statement from the developers, word for word, in regards to when we're going to see Build 42. As many have assumed, we are currently working on getting Unstable out before Christmas. We feel like we will be in a good place for this, but clearly the closer we get, the shorter the window for any necessary patching before the Christmas season. If we need to, we will choose to delay, but right now the enjoyment we're seeing from our testers certainly would seem to suggest that the build will be in a good enough state for wider consumption, and if it were to slip, at this point in time it's hard to imagine it slipping far into the new year. If anything were to happen to change our minds, you would be the first to know. So from this statement, it looks like Father Christmas could be leaving Build 42 underneath the tree this year if all goes well. It's quite funny really, because this is pretty much exactly how the release of Build 41 went. It was released on December 20th of 2021, and I still remember we were all waiting with bated breath back then as to whether it was going to be out before Christmas. I'm really glad we finally got a bit of a public statement as to what the goal is for the release, and while I know their original statement was sometime this year, I'm sure we'll all be pretty fine if it's just a week or two more that we have to wait should it come to that. Coming up, we're going to take a look at the updated recap of features for Build 42, see some of these features in more detail, and hear about some of the feedback given by testers. Before that though, a very quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark, the VPN that does more than just safeguard your data. Let's say you're looking for a flight out of Kentucky, for example. Surfshark will help you compare all the deals available on tickets and help you avoid any price discrimination based solely on where you are. With a choice of over 3,200 servers in 100 countries around the globe, you'll know you're getting the best price. For me, I like to do some work down at my local coffee place from time to time, and public Wi-Fi definitely has its safety risks. On public networks, Surfshark will encrypt your online data and make your device a well-guarded fortress, ensuring nobody can get their grubby hands on your private information. Not to mention, there's always Surfshark Antivirus too, for that extra layer of protection from spyware, hackers, or viruses, wherever you are. Give Surfshark a try today for as little as $2.49 a month using my link down in the description to get 4 months extra, totally free. And if you're not happy, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. Thanks again to Surfshark. Let's get back to today's video. Okay, next up we're taking a look at a recap of all the features coming to the Unstable branch of Build 42. For those that don't understand how this works, it's essentially the same as Build 41's initial release. It'll be an optional version of the game that can be accessed by right-clicking on Project Zomboid in your Steam library, going to Properties, then in the Betas tab, we'll be able to opt in for Build 42's Unstable release. This will be accessible to all players, but will be single player only, and multiplayer will come later, as shown in this handy new diagram provided by the developers. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to talk about all of this in detail because there's quite a lot on here, but there are a few points that I do want to touch on that may be different from when we saw them in earlier blog posts if you've been following development. For example, a while ago we got a look at some footage of zombies piling up against fencing and destroying it before swarming through the new entrance that they'd created. We now know that this feature will not make it into the initial release, but will be added at some stage during the Unstable build. As mentioned previously, multiplayer also won't be in the initial release and will come later down the line before Build 42 moves out of Unstable. Various animals will be included in the first Unstable version, including livestock like cows, pigs, sheep, and chickens, with all of the stuff we'll need to properly take care of them and utilize their produce. Wild animals will be included too, such as deer and rabbits that we'll be able to hunt, as well as rats that will fill the background and help with ambience, but raccoons are currently not planned for the initial launch and will be brought in later. Perhaps the biggest shift up from the original plan for Build 42 is that we are seeing a vastly reduced version of the new crafting system. Consider this like a taster of what is to come. There There's new UIs, the use of surfaces needed for crafting, there's a new pottery skill and blacksmithing too, but many other aspects are going to be coming in later, so much of the current system may stay the same. Now again, I'm not going to be covering all the stuff on here because it's a pretty exhaustive list, so we're about to move on, and if you want to pause the video here and take a more detailed look at the list, please feel free to do so. I'd also like to take this opportunity just to note that when Build 42 does come out, I'll probably do a big video on everything that's new in the update. So keep an eye out for that, I guess. Alright, so we're moving into the realms of feedback now. The developers explained that around 30 individuals from outside the development team have been playing Build 42, giving feedback, and the response has been overall very positive. With this feedback, they've also gained some insight into what needs to be polished, both currently while they get the final version of the build ready, and what will be worked on during the unstable update process. The devs then go on to say that testers have seemed to enjoy the way the game feels now, with it playing more smoothly and the world itself feeling more alive. Testers have responded well to many features, including but not limited to the new lighting, new map additions and overhauls, new lore, animals, optimization, underground areas, dynamic music, player voices, corpse dragging, and farming. The developers then make a quick mention that rebalanced zombie spawns, the requirement of sneaking past large groups, and how combat now builds muscle strain have also been generally well received. That said, these features do result in a change of pace, and the developers feel that this is something that will take some getting used to for some members of the community, suspecting that it will cause some debate. It switches up the style of play to something slower and more thoughtful in approach. The zombies are now much more of a threat, and the devs note that this is especially true with the new darkness system in play. Players that prefer a guns blazing approach might disagree or find this unenjoyable, so the devs are eager to see how this feedback comes in once this is available to the public. Lastly, they do also mention sandbox options will be there to modify or disable certain aspects that people may not like. As for difficulty levels, the developers state that because rural and some residential areas now have less zombies than before, though it is something they are still balancing, the game may feel slightly easier for experienced players. This is something they are aware of and will use the feedback from the wider player base to try and tighten this up if needed. Next, they move on to some of the feedback with regards to animals. Overall, players seem to be enjoying the process of caring for animals, but one of the pain points for testers was how livestock zones work. Essentially, players have to draw these animals a zone if you want to move them to a new area so that the animal's AI knows where it's supposed to be. Farmsteads will come with these zones when the map is created, but that's not immediately obvious to new players, and as such, the team have been working on a solution. With this solution in play, animals will create their own zones automatically to feed, drink, and breed within. This is still experimental, and with that in mind, the full integration of this feature will come during the unstable build, not at first launch. We're also shown a small clip which gives us a look at a new radial menu added for interaction with animals as an alternative to the current right-click menus. Okay, so some of you may have noticed when we were taking a look at the features list earlier that hunting was on the initial launch list, but that expanded hunting was to be added later. We're going to touch on that in a bit more detail now. Right now, deer migrate around the map via preordained paths that are constructed when the game is first loaded. In their wake, they leave broken twigs and droppings that players with the tracking skill can use to follow them, which testers have found to be atmospheric according to the developers. They do acknowledge, however, that while this aspect of the new build does add life to the world, in terms of actual hunting gameplay, there's a feeling that there's a lot of room for improvements to be made during the time in which Build 42 is on the unstable branch. Right now, it's simple and fun, but the developers really want to give it that Call of the Wild feeling, and to achieve that, they believe there's going to be more focus needed on the deer, their deaths, and the act of tracking them. Up to this moment, animal husbandry has instead received far more attention during development. Some of you may remember that the fishing skill is due for an overhaul in Build 42. There's a new minigame to make fishing more actively involving for the player rather than just something we can start up before we go and make ourselves a brew. That's British for making a cup of tea if you're unfamiliar, because that's where I'm from, not America. Stop saying saying I'm from America, not that I'm bitter about it. Anyway, it's been a while since we've seen footage of the fishing minigame, and things have probably changed a bit since then, but the feedback has been positive from testers so far, and there's already been some ideas on how to improve the system during Unstable too. I'll be interested to give this a go for myself because fishing was always a skill I advocated for in Build 41, and I'm a big fan of fishing in most games, to be honest. In the next segment of this Thursdoid, we're taking a look at crafting and building, starting off with a look at the most recent iteration of the crafting menu. Now, let's break this image down a bit for you folks at home. At the top of the window, we can see that the player is crafting on a surface, which a lot of crafting now requires. This can be a surface of any kind, such as tables or countertops. On the left, you've got your different categories of crafting that you'll be familiar with from the current crafting menu. Mixed in are some new types of crafting, however, like glassmaking, pottery, and packing. Beside that, we see a preview of the items we are able to build within that category, complete with a search function that allows us to sift through recipes for something specific. Once you've selected your recipe of choice, you can then see the required items for the craft and what supplies will be returned to you after the crafting is complete. Lastly, on the far right of the window, we can see which items the player has in hand for the crafting recipe and which items they could substitute that with if they possess them. Overall, I like how this looks. It's simple, easy to follow, and it's all contained within a singular window while retaining a lot of those key functions like being able to search for recipes. The developers note after showing us this window that they believe it could do with more direct information on what is included in each recipe, but they are also very happy with how crisp and clear the UI looks. Lastly, there is a note that this will be refined further by the time we get our hands on it, so this window may look different in future. Following on from this look at the crafting menu, we're shown some footage of the new building menu in use, which is a separate menu on the left side of the player's screen. The developers reiterate that the purpose of these new user interface elements is to remove Project Zomboid's reliance on right-click menus, and in time, they will be considering making the movable system a part of this too, in order to cut down on general screen clutter. Okay, so we're moving on to the last section of the dev blog now, and that's all about sneaking, stealth, and zombie perception. The changes in zombie distribution essentially mean that while it may be quieter in the rural areas, those looting hotspots you were used to, like say the local police department or fire station, will be busier than ever. As such, feedback from initial testers suggests that they would like to see improved stealth mechanics, which I'll agree is something Project Zomboid sorely needs. Right now, just walking within a zombie's visual radius will trigger its aggro within a few seconds, even if you're using perks like Inconspicuous, and different weather conditions or lighting don't really seem to play much of a role. In Build 42, however, the developers have shown us how zombie awareness will be affected by different daylight conditions and severe weather like a layer of fog, for example. This footage you're seeing is a direct comparison. It's not directly stated in the dev blog, but I'd hazard a guess that these circles represent how far a zombie can see. When they go red, it means the zombie has been alerted to the player's presence. Again, that is just me guessing, but we can see the difference quite clearly between the three types of footage we're shown. At night, zombie awareness is reduced, and during fog, this effect is even heavier. Really cool to see, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to finally being able to sneak past groups of Zeds as a choice, rather than feeling like I'm pretty much forced to aggro them bit by bit and pick them off. More choice is always a good thing after all. So that's it from this dev blog, and as such, that's it from me in this video, but hopefully you found it useful. Just a reminder that the full dev blog is in the description if you want to give it a read. And once again, a very special thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video. As a very final thing, usually I'd promote my Patreon here, but today I'm instead going to say that if you've enjoyed all my videos covering the Thursdoids in the run-up to Build 42, and if you're going to be playing Build 42 yourselves, consider jumping on our Discord server. There's a link down in the description for that too, and it'll serve as a great place to ask questions about new mechanics, share your findings with other players, or get notified when I post new videos, like say some guides on how new mechanics in Build 42 work, which I've definitely got planned. Anyway, that's enough of me. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and I will see you all in the next one.